Good morning, church. How are we? Good. I'm gonna need some feedback today, so I'll be asking some questions. It's gonna be a little bit different. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joe Savalle. I come from Oxford, Michigan, and what I was not prepared for today is that I walked in here and I actually knew a lot of people. I kind of grew up going to Grace Christian Church right around the corner on Van Dyke, so this is kind of like my old stomping grounds a bit. But it was nice to see my fellow coworker, Brianne, from 20 years ago. And your drummer, Zach McAllister, I knew him when he was like 10, 11, and 12 years old. And I have not seen him since. So he's grown up a lot. And then, of course, the Elbert family, who I'll be sharing a little bit why they mean so much to me in a few minutes. But I'm going to say a quick prayer, and we're going to jump right into a message. God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for getting us here safely through the snow, and if there's still someone trying to get here, make sure they're protected with your angels, Father, Lord, getting them to this building. Father, we just bless the word today. We bless the environment. We might have had our car spinning out on the way here, but we're here. So now we're ready to hear your word, God, and we hand it over to you and say, have your way. In Jesus' name, amen. So I am the executive director of something called Love for a Child, which is a foster care-based ministry in Oxford, Michigan, Holland, Michigan, and Frankenmuth, Michigan. And this year we'll be opening a fourth office in Traverse City, Michigan as well. So this is something that we do across the state, but I don't want this message to just be like the charity guy visited our church and told us about what he did. We'll get to that. Because I know someone's like, oh, the charity guy's here. I know what he wants. Open the wallet. We got to make a donation. I don't care about that today. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to share a message that hopefully will push and urge you to do something different when you leave here today. We open to that? So first, my message is titled Moments That Matter. And we're going to be talking about two very pivotal moments in our lives. One called moments of time, and the second called moments of love. But what are moments in general? How do we know that word? Typically, when we think of moments in our lives, we think of things that made great intentional impact. Hey, that first time I went on a vacation, or that job I was really trying to get for 5 years and my career changed and I got it. Our brain is wired to think of the positives. And I want to tell a kind of a cute, funny little story about a moment that I changed or challenged my thought process. See, who, by the raise of hands, has ever stayed in a really nice hotel? Just be honest. We can be prideful here for a second. A nice hotel, okay? And when we think of those things, what was so nice about that hotel? Hey, the concierge knew my name, or they had the best pillows and this pillow top mattress, and the shampoos and the conditioners in the bathroom were a really expensive brand, and I stole them and I put them in my suitcase. We've all done it. Those are things we have in common, sure. But I stayed at this crappy hotel. Am I allowed to say crappy on stage? I stayed at this crappy hotel in Los Angeles back in 2008. It was called the Magic Castle. See, wow, no one's ever laughed when I've said the name, but we're off to a good start. The Magic Castle was an old apartment complex that was run down, and they said, well, let's just allow people to come here for the weekend and rent the rooms out for cheap, but we got to make their moments here an experience. So being a broke young guy traveling, trying to do music, I stayed at this hotel for 2 nights. I was performing locally, and I said, all right, let's see what this place is all about. Well, I parked my car, I walked up, and a guy greeted me at the door. And for no reason, he handed me a Butterfinger. If people are thinking there's something else, I have no idea why. I have no story behind that. He handed me a king-size Butterfinger and said, welcome to the Magic Castle. So now I have a backpack and a Butterfinger, and I'm confused. I walk up to the desk and they say, hey, Mr. Savalle, thank you for coming to Magic Castle. You'll be staying with us for 2 nights. Our bellboy will actually walk your bags to your room. Don't worry, no charge. You don't have to tip him. And he came out dressed like Woody from Toy Story. So he grabs my backpack, walks it to my room, and he gives me like this small tour. Hey, now this is I got an older crowd here, so you'll relate. Yeah. I didn't say anything about you directly, miss. That would have been the oldest crowd. No. Now we're doing stand-up. No. Now she threw me off. No, I'm just kidding. He gives me a tour. First room he shows me is the DVD room. He says, hey, this is the DVD room. You can take as many DVDs as you want. And when I say the word take, they're free. You can take them home. I said, great. I'm glad I have this backpack. And I just started loading them in. Then, hey, we have the Snack Shack. It's a room that you can go to, Doritos, chips, Snicker bars, you name it. It's included with your stay. Anything you want, 24 hours a day, you can go in there and take. Again, a broke young 20-year-old and a junk food room, that was heaven to me. So by the time I've gotten to my room, I've been invigorated by the Butterfinger, the DVD room, the Snack Shack, the Toy Story outfit, and I haven't even seen the room yet. Now, the room was nothing special. But it was a hot day. It was like almost 100 degrees in LA. I decided one of the first things I want to do is put on my swimsuit, take a swim. And I went down to the pool. A few people were joining me. And as I'm swimming, I'm like, man, very bizarrely, there's a red phone next to the pool, like 5 feet from the pool. So I finally say something, hey, what's the deal with the red phone? They said, oh, that's the popsicle hotline. If you grab the phone, the concierge will answer it and say, strawberry, mango, pineapple, or coconut. I said, then what happens? They said, on a silver platter, they bring you out a popsicle. And I'm like, this is the best hotel I've ever stayed at. So yeah, who wants to stay at the Magic Castle now? Who's laughing now? And the last part of the story was, again, I was like, hey, I'm going to be traveling on the road a little bit. I should probably do some laundry. So, folded up my delicates real nice and told, hey, can I do laundry? They said, we'll do it for you. I said, no, I can do it. Like, you got quarter machines? I know. I said, no charge, we'll do it for you. They come picked up my delicates, and they brought it to the laundry room. They did it, and they said, it will just be on your door when you get back. I said, on my door? They're like, yeah. And they take a piece of duct tape, and they wrap up your laundry in butcher paper, and they duct tape it to your door. So the best 2 days of my life, as you can tell, but what I realized is, as I'm doing today, is those individualized moments that took place in a 48-hour period is the most talked about hotel I've ever talked about in the last 15 years. I was in New York City 2 days ago and stayed at a pretty nice hotel. Nothing happened. It was okay. In fact, most of the workers didn't really care that I was there. Half the time my key didn't work. No one cared. No mint on my pillow. Both days, they didn't clean my room. And you don't want to know how much I paid for that hotel. What I'm saying is, life is really built up of moments, but it's the ones that you share an experience at are the ones that you talk about the most. And today, I want to talk about something that we have done to hopefully create an experience for a group of children who have had some really hard times that is the Disney world of experiences that they've gone through. And we call that Love for a Child. And a couple years ago, when I talk about some moments, I was in front of a room like this, and I said, inspirational moments, give them to me. And they said, first job, first car, first dream vacation, my first child, my first wedding, my first kiss, my first breakup, my first girlfriend, boyfriend, my wedding day. Most of those are just invigorating, positive things. True story, in 2017, I sat a group of 9 to 12-year-old foster children down in a room. There was 10 of them. And I said, hey, I want to ask you a simple question. What are the things that you remember most about being a little bit younger or being a kid right now? And I said, as a foster child. Here are the answers I got. Mr. Joe, I remember the first time that I had to move homes and I missed my birthday. I remember the first time that a police officer had to visit my home because my dad wasn't behaving. I remember the third and the fourth time that I had to move homes and I didn't like it much. I remember my first court session as a foster child. I remember the first time my mom/dad didn't show up to see me. I also remember my first bed, a 9-year-old who had been on a couch for 9 years, in transition with a biological father that couldn't afford an apartment or a home. And I knew immediately at that point in time, a group of 10 kids had changed my thought process. You didn't have to create something lavish and huge to change the world. You just had to meet them where they were at. Some of them were grateful that they had a bed for the first time. Some of them didn't know when their next meal was coming. And today I want to talk to you about some of these kids and who they are in our city and the ones that we are serving. And as Pastor mentioned in the reading of the scripture today, I want to read again just a small story from Mark 10, 13 through 16. Let me repeat that to you. The people brought children to Jesus, hoping he might touch them. His own disciples shooed them off, and Jesus was irate, and he let them know it. Jesus says, "Don't push these children away. Don't ever get between me and them. These children are at the very center of the kingdom. Mark this and hear me when I say it. Unless you accept God's kingdom in the simplicity of a child, you'll never get it. You'll never inherit it." And then Jesus pushes through the crowd, mid-sermon, mid-temple, gets on 2 knees in front of these group of children that were told to leave. They were an obstruction. They were a distraction. And he says, "Come to me. Look me in the eyes. I will always make time for you." See, we as Christians, people who are of religion, have confused all the scriptures and what we're supposed to do as humanity of people who love Jesus. But we sometimes have forgotten that living life simplicity as a kid is something we need to be reminded of today. And by the time you leave here today, I'm going to challenge you to bring out your inner child. Jesus always made time for his children. They were priority. They came first. It's actually in the Bible that we are called to serve the orphan. Now that word has been kind of ruled out in today's society. We don't have orphanages anymore. Yes, we do. We just call them children's centers. In fact, I was at one 2 weeks ago in Flint, where 52 children who don't have parents live basically in jail cells. White cinder block rooms. They have to go into the room at 6 p.m. They can't leave the room until 8 a.m. And they're just there doing chores. They get to have recess 30 minutes a day. And all of their biological parents have made challenges or mistakes in their life that have caused their children to go there. Well, Joe, why aren't they in a nice foster care home yet? Because they can't find them one. They're looking desperately, and there's not enough homes for this small group of children. And that's just one little building in Flint. But we can't call it an orphanage. We have to call it a development center. There's no developing happening in that building. So let's jump into a little bit about who Love for a Child is and what we're doing to change the game. Love for a Child serves children in foster care across the state of Michigan. We start working with them between the ages of 6 and 12 years old. We work directly with agencies across the state to identify who these children are and the special needs that they need help in. What's different now in 2023 that started basically in 2021 is Love for a Child even saw a bigger deficit that took place post-COVID. And these 2 stats are going to shock you. And I'm going to word it a little bit differently because we have some younger people in the audience. But Love for a Child noticed that, okay, there's 15,000 children at any given time in the foster care system. In Metro Detroit, let's narrow that down to like 4,500. And then we start narrowing it down to counties or cities, and we can say, okay, there's 500 here, there's 1,000 here, there's 200 here. We know the location of where they are at. But then right around 2020, we noticed a bigger stat starting to come our way. And we said, Jesus, do we focus on this? Because there's a lot of kids in need, but there's like this lower layer of foster care that is so extremely overlooked that we need to put our hyper attention and our focus on it. And it falls into two categories. Children who have been put into the foster care system who are destined or have lived 10 homes prior to the age of 10 years old, category 1. Category 2 is children in the foster care system that have been severely taken advantage of, hear what I'm saying there, by 5 or more adult partners prior to the age of 10 years old. And because of those two categories, they are 92% likely to never see adoption, because Christian or not, foster license or not, parents sign up for the child, and I've seen it happen time after time. Well, explain who the child is. Well, he's 10 years old. He kind of acts like he's 7. He's unfortunately been an abuse victim in multiple ways by 5 or more adult partners. He's medicated. He breaks things. And parents go, ooh, I signed up for this, but I didn't sign up for that. Who else do you have? And all of a sudden, the who else do you haves get pushed into this pile that is so severely overlooked by our state, they're likely just to fail by the time they even see 22 years old. Is actually about 75% likely that that group of children, hundreds of kids in the system, will become homeless, part of prostitution rings, drug addiction, and it's maybe likely that they'll see the age of 30. So 3 years ago, we decided, we know foster care is tough for some, but nobody's looking at this one, these ones. These are our group that we're going to serve. We're going to chase them while everyone else is deciding to walk away from their stories. This is the group we want to serve. And I want to share just a few stats about those children. See, in 2020, about 2,000 kids entered the system in addition to the 14,000 we already had. I've given you the two categories. Michigan currently is tied for the 4th worst state in the United States of America for foster care development. Easy way to say that is the government hasn't really figured out a good process to fixing it. They're responsible for training up agencies to go out and do good, but they have struggles. And by the time we actually get down to the family's needs and what the family deserves and the family's signed up for, we've equipped them with such little resources and little direction, we just hope that it's successful for them. 6 out of 10 children in Michigan will not graduate high school. Less than 2% will ever see a college classroom, and 52% of children in the foster care system will become drug addicted, homelessness, part of prostitution rings, with a death age of 29 and a half years old in the state of Michigan. I know these are shocking. Is he making these up? I'm 38 years old and I have been doing this for 20 years. Ask Brian, she knows. I'm not lying about that. For 20 years. I've seen it all. I've heard every story. And today I want to share who these kids are and where they come from. These next 2 stories, one's a little tough and one's a testimony. I apologize in advance because this first one's a little bit tough and I'm going to use some language that is a little bit more adult. See, I grew up in Macomb County, Hall Road and Romeo Plank. I went to a place called Dakota High School. Our arch rivals was Chippewa Valley High School. Hold on one second. You can wait a few more minutes. Sorry. Chippewa Valley High School is at 19 Garfield. We knew it. It wasn't an area that was distressed. It wasn't an area that was financially broken. It was an all-American little town. In 2018, Love for a Child was hosting a camp that year in the Oxford area. And I got a call from a case manager that said, hey, there's this little 11-year-old girl that needs to be in your program. I said, okay, we're getting a lot of these calls. May I ask what's going on? They said, her story is tough. I said, give it to me. I've done this for a long time. They said, well, see, when she was 9 years old, she was supposed to be enrolled in a local school, and she didn't show up for her first day of school or her last day of school. And nobody called, nobody flinched an eye. Okay, what's next? Well, the second year, she was enrolled into that same school. And the principal brought up some concerns about why is she still enrolled here? We didn't see her last year. They made a phone call to a local relative that was on the emergency list. And that aunt said, yeah, that little girl, good luck. I think she's about 10 now. Her dad has some struggles. He's been on the move his entire life. The mom's not in the picture. Good luck finding her. By the time you try to find her, they're probably 2 states away and 10 more addresses on their file. And they stopped. But year 3 came around. Guess who was enrolled into that school? The same 11-year-old girl. So the principal calls Child Protective Services and said, hey, I remember this case from a year ago. I made a few phone calls. The local family said she lives far away. We stopped. I just want to make sure there's nothing wrong here. So CPS looks into it. They go to the address on file at 19 in Garfield. Beautiful little subdivision. They go to the home. They can clearly see it's abandoned. Nobody lives there. Grass is a foot tall. House is in rough shape. It's been neglected, but it's sitting right in the middle of a bunch of nice homes. Police officers even go to the neighbor and say, does anyone live here? They said, I don't think so. It's been a long time since we've seen anybody go in and out of there. So the police officer says, I'll take your word for it. Goes back and says, yeah, nobody lives there. 8 days later, on a summer day in June, that same gentleman who said nobody lives there was cutting his grass when he was walking around the side of his house and he could hear screams coming from that home. He calls the police. They come back. The same gentleman who wrote off the house is now there calling for backup. They enter this home with weapons drawn, drug paraphernalia, alcohol bottles. The house is unclean. And they can hear the whimpering of what appears to be a young woman. They open the door. They go down a flight of stairs to a concrete basement that we all know to find a little 11-year-old girl chained by both of her ankles to a pole in the middle of a basement, living in her own feces for 3 years. Cheez-Its, bread, milk, water, hair in tangles. What makes the story even worse is that a local Macomb County trafficking ring had sent over 75 adults into that home over a 3-year period who would sexually abuse that little girl for 3 years. And after she's rescued and put into the foster care system, we were the first phone call. She needs a place to go where she can feel like a kid. She hasn't left a basement in 3 years. People say, well, gosh, this girl must have been in rough shape. What did she look like? Was she missing her hair? Was she missing teeth? Was she malnourished? This is a little girl named Riley. Take a good look at that. A girl that has a rainbow on her face eating snow cones at a camp. Now, we brought 40 children to camp that year. She was just one of them. Our goal was to give her the time of her life. What people don't know is that at 9 o'clock at night, she would start to get really worked up with anxiety, tears, because typically it was the evening hours that the abuse took place. And when we pulled her outside in front of her room, we said, Riley, what can we do to comfort you? She said, would somebody brush my hair? I said, what do you mean? She came out of the shower. She's like, I've never had a mom to brush my hair. So I'm going to get a little emotional here. Her camp counselors brought in a spray bottle and would spray her hair and just keep brushing it until she finally got sleepy enough that she would fall asleep every night. See, she just needed a chance to feel safety and comfort and have a mother brush her hair, something we've all taken for granted, something you women in the audience go, I would do that in a heartbeat. But nobody knew really her story. The second story is a little quicker. This, and you can bring up the picture now. One of my best friends is in this picture. His name is Timmy. He's the boy wearing the blue shirt and the red bandana. He is about 25 years old right now. In this picture, he was 21. And about 16 years ago, he came to camp as a broken, battered foster care child. Abuse in every way you can think of, a father who had taken his own life when he was 3, a mother incarcerated for life. He was thrown in every foster care home you can imagine, and his story was horrific. He was one of the statistics. He will never see age 30. He will be on drugs. He will not graduate high school. When he came to that camp 16 years ago, he impacted my life. I walked out of that camp changed. They told me he would be filled with rage and anger and all these different things, but when he got there, he was, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Mr. Joe, would you mind playing football with me out on the field? Timmy, we're going to be out there in a minute. Can you just wait? Yeah, I'll wait here. And he would just stand. I'm like, what they wrote about this child and what I'm seeing is two different stories. Timmy, 2 years ago, graduated high school. 4 years ago, graduated high school. He has now completed his bachelor's degree at Oakland Community College. He was valedictorian of his school, a 2-time wrestling state champion. He came to camp for the first time 5 years ago and met a female camp counselor who he's now marrying in 2023. He gave his life to the Lord 3 years ago at camp. See, for 15 years, we stayed in his life. We mentored him. We were there through the rough nights. We were there for the joyful. I'm not here to say what I did for Timmy. I'm here to say that I showed up in a child's time of need, and my life was changed forever. In fact, I was not planning on doing this today, and it might cause for a little bit of embarrassment, but I couldn't help but send a text message right as the worship was starting to 2 young ladies that are on our team. They're 2 female camp counselors. I said, guess what? I'm at church today. I'm going to be speaking. I'm actually sharing the room today with a young woman, 12 years old, whose name is Bianca. Bianca was at camp 5 years ago, and she's a part of an amazing family. Doesn't mean that her childhood and some of the challenges that she had weren't tough. But what Bianca doesn't know is that those 2 girls who came to our camp and shared a room with her for a week were not Christians. But they met a girl in foster care and they gave their life to the Lord and said, this is what we want to do with our lives. And Amanda and Veronica are now starting their 6th year with us. They're leaders in our organization, but we still talk about their time with Bianca 5 and 6 years ago. I get emotional because this was a very mission in my life that people said was going to be a waste of my time. Why would you want to start something in an industry that is so corrupt and so unglamorous, and it's never had a track record of being good? Because underneath all of that garbage is a group of children that deserve it. And so we are raising up this year, we have 350 plus Christian volunteers who are going to put on not one, but 3 camps to bring 120 kids that fall under these now severe categories to give them the love of Jesus for 1 week. And when that week is over, we now enroll them into a mentorship program where they're seen every single month. And when they go to the next home in the next city, guess what? We follow them. We say, we're not going to lose you this time. Because like Timmy, we want to make sure that they're in our lives. If the piano player wants to come out now, I'm ready. And I want to share just 2 quick little things before we close. Shared a little bit with you about how Love for a Child is, yes, a foster care camp. It's a mentorship program. It's resources for families. But as equally as it is for children in foster care, myself and hundreds of others are meeting the face of children who have spent more time in courtrooms than they have playgrounds. And I'm sorry, Bianca, if I embarrassed you and the family, because I didn't ask permission to do that. But you guys deserve to know who you're sharing the room with. A young girl and a family who overcame those odds of lack of resources. Said, it's never going to happen. See, a couple years ago, I liked to go running, and I was running around this pond in Oxford. And every morning, this woman would be out just sitting at this bench with like a towel and a cage. And I would just run by her all the time. But every morning, 7 a.m., she was there. So finally, I stopped. And I said, what are you doing every morning right here? She said, oh, I'm helping the turtles. I said, okay, why? She said, this pond is really gross and there's a ton of turtles here. I said, okay, I need more. She said, every morning, a few turtles will be on the grass waiting for the sunlight to come out. See, turtles do that. I said, I didn't know that. I said, why do they do that? Their shell at an early age is responsible to get oxygen and sunlight. It's how the shell grows. It's how they store their oxygen to stay under the water for that long. That's why they come to the surface, is to grab a little bit of sunlight to go back down into the darkness. Hear where I'm going here? She said, but the pond is scummy, and their shells get plastered with dirt and mud, and they can't see the sun. So I wipe off the dirt, and I clean the crevices of their shell so that they can enjoy their day. And I said, you do this every morning. I said, do you really think you're making a difference? And she kind of snarkily laughed, and she said, son, if this one had a voice right here, I think they would tell you how much I'm doing for them, how thankful they are. I've met thousands of children in foster care whose voice has been robbed by the system. And on the exterior, people see the word foster care, they see delayed education, they see medicated, and they put them back in the pond. But every once in a while, somebody comes around and says, let me be a little bit of light. Let me get to know this one. Let me nurture them and take care of them. And that child now has a chance. And this will be my final story of the day. If you remember anything, remember this. Jesus loves you. The God the Father loves you. I'm a father to a 3.5-year-old daughter and a son who is almost 1. In fact, they share the same birthday, February 12th. But when I had my daughter a few years ago, my world was changed. And if there's any dads in the audience, you know, if you were once tough, you weren't tough at that moment. You'll be tough for her. But your daughter softens your heart in a way that you can't describe. And when my daughter was 2.5, we went through the routine of putting her to bed, shower, brush her hair, put on the pajamas, brush her teeth. Let's go up to the room, say our prayers, and I put her to bed. I went downstairs, I took a shower, and I sat on the couch, and I said, okay, I can finally relax. I opened up her little baby monitor where we watch her, and I heard her cough. But to a parent, this wasn't the normal cough. This was the cough that sent your spine into shivers, because I knew what was happening next. And as I looked down, I said, oh my gosh, she's vomiting everywhere. And I sprinted off the couch, threw the Cheez-It bowl, ran upstairs, fired open her door, turned on the light, and I scooped her out of bed, throw up and all, her pillow caked in throw up. I grabbed it all and I walked into the bathroom. I ripped off her shirt, I ripped off the pillowcase, I got into the shower with my clothes on, and her screams were loud, but I held her tight. I washed off that throw up. And then eventually she started to calm down and the screams became these breaths. She could feel the comfort. Got a warm towel and I held her close. And with my shirt off and my daughter's shirt off, I just started to pace the living room, holding her with her head against my shoulder. And the Lord just kind of put into my thought process, I got you. Baby, I got you. You don't have to scream anymore. I got you. You don't have to worry anymore. I got you. You don't have to feel the pain anymore. I got you. And she fell into a deep slumber right there on my chest. I put her to bed. And I walked out of her room and I sat on the stairs with tears in my eyes because I said, man, isn't the Lord sweet? Because forget love for a child for a second. If you're in this room and you're battling depression, anxiety, financial stress, whatever it is, whatever you walked into this room with. See, there's this moment in anger and fear and torment, the sleepless nights where you're saying, God, where are you? And the screams are loud and your pain is heavy. And all he wants you to do is come to his chest and stop talking. I got you. My son, my daughter, I've been here the entire time. I'm here. And I went to my team of volunteers that year and I shared this story and I said, this year, when each child comes off the bus, you let them know they're safe. You let them know that they're going to have a great week. And let them know that you have them. Because some are coming off the worst childhood of their life out of a basement. Some are coming off not knowing that they're going to have to go to a new foster care home at the end of the week. But for this 1 week, we can give them the gift of Jesus and their lives will be changed forever. Miss Amanda, Miss Ronnie, their lives will be changed forever by a foster child. A guy who thought he had all the swagger in the world's life was changed by a 10-year-old foster child. And just to put things in perspective, I thought I would bring a video from this last year. Now that I've shared the stats, you know what those stats are and you know the type of children I'm talking about. This video is called Moments and it shows the heartbeat of who we are. Go ahead and enjoy it. My hope today is just a couple things. Number one, if you're looking for something, a purpose, something to do this year, I'll be standing at my table. I'll hand you a simple little piece of paperwork. You can go home, read it, watch the videos on the website and say, I would like to learn about becoming a volunteer. Because in the next 60 days, we're going to be bringing on volunteers and then we're going to close the doors and bring an amazing team this summer in August to that campground where 40 children are looking forward to meeting you. And the Lord's looking to see what he's going to do with your life when you meet them. No harm in coming and grabbing the paper, going home, praying about it. If it's not for you, no big deal. If you can make a donation, great. But more importantly, for you that have children of your own, go home today and be a kid. Do something with them. Turn the TV off for an hour and just be a kid. Allow yourself to be a kid. Life is too short to just keep moving too quickly forward. Because there's a kid in our program that would love for somebody to take 1 hour of their day and play a board game, jump around in the snow. But we allow life to busy us too much. Let's pray.